Peter, welcome to the Handicap Golf channel and the Shows You Golf Simulator podcast. I'm really intrigued by showing everybody your setup because if anybody doesn't know, Peter has his own YouTube channel, very much around golf simulators. And I've watched a few of your videos, Pete, and it seems like quite a unique little setup you've got going on there.
Yeah, right, Mitch. How's it going? Just I've been playing sim golf for a little while, but we moved into our new house. So it's a very old house actually, and that's kind of the benefit, I suppose. Here, like a lot of houses in the UK have kind of low ceilings, and we've got the sort of high ceilings. So just a wee room in the corner of the house that I managed to convince the other half was perfect for a golf simulator room.
So, Peter, your channel is Scratch Golf
Yeah,
because you are a scratch golfer, is that correct?
I'm a scratch golfer. Yeah.
And how long have you been playing golf for?
So I grew up across my golf course, like on the west coast of Scotland. So started playing with my dad when I was about 4 years old.
So, are you a professional or do you just play amateur?
No, just it's just amateur golf. I don't play in because I have a young family. I don't play in as many sort of big tournaments as I used to. So a lot of my golf these days is just it's just club golf. I'm very lucky to play at Carnoustie, which is just 5 minutes along the road. And yeah, just play the competitions. They're really playing any big events anymore. So just kind of with friends and my son's just at an age now where he's wanting to play a wee bit, which is nice.
So, how did you end up getting into simulator golf then?
The local club, Carnoustie, they put in their own. It was like nothing like what they have these days, but it was just a net and a launch monitor. And I just went once or twice a week and hit balls in preparation for this trip. And I played really well on the trip, given that my game's normally in bad shape in January. And after that, I kind of thought if I can, I need to have a space of my own to keep my game going so it's ready for the spring. And it just kind of grew arms and legs from there. It's one of those things where I would always try and play as much as I could over the winter. And now, like when the weather's bad, I don't even contemplate playing golf outside in the winter. I mean, here it's so much better for your game, like being, cozy and, not playing in like a 50-mile-an-hour wind. So it's, very much outside in the summer, but almost all my winter golf now is in here.
Which launch monitor are you using?
Now or my history of launch monitors. So
You
I've had a
go for
few.
all of it, mate.
Yeah, back in the day, I suppose, yeah, 6 or 7 years ago, it was Flight Scope and TrackMan were just kind of the only real choices, and I got myself a cheap Flight Scope XI, it was called, so radar based, and it was good just for practicing on the range or whatever. But there was no like the software. I think E6 was one of the ones, and it was like £5,000 or something like that. So it was just driving range golf. There wasn't really sim golf.
Yeah.
And then the problem with the radar unit, certainly that one inside was like the further up your bag you went. So if you're hitting driver, because I only had 10 feet to hit into, like the numbers weren't particularly great. It was fantastic outside. It would track the ball the entire distance out in the range, but not inside. So I got myself a Sky Track, which you know well yourself, and again just like used on eBay. I think I paid about 1,000 for that. And used that for about 5 years, like, really successfully. Started playing sim golf on that. And last year I bit the bullet and bought a GC3. And it was one of those things at the time you're thinking this is way too much of an expense for me to really justify it, and then you buy it and completely forget about it. So it's been brilliant for about last year or so.
Yeah, I actually watched your comparison video of GC3 with the SkyTrack, and it was
Uh,
really interesting. It's probably one of the best ones that I've seen, to be fair,
uh,
because I think the GC3, if I can eventually afford it, will be the next progression for me in terms
mm,
of launch monitor. I tested the GC3 a few months ago, and I kind of already knew it was going to be brilliant, and it was going to be
yeah,
accurate, and it was going to be the one that I wanted next. And then once I used it, I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And then I watched your video comparing the SkyTrack data, and they were quite similar to be fair, weren't they?
yeah,
But
yeah, definitely.
there were a few shots that were like slightly offline, so SkyTrack thought it went to the right, and actually it was a
Mm.
draw or whatever. So yeah, it was really interesting for that, so, to see that. So
Do you know, like, I did the video twice actually because I got a bit of hate for the first one. It's quite hard to have a Skytrack and a GC3 pick up the same ball at the same time. And the first video was kind of like, I know this is a bit of a crude test, but these are my feelings on it, having owned a Skytrack for 5 years and having owned a GC3 for a year now. and everyone's like, oh, it's not a valid test, and this and that. So I redid the test and got it really, really close, and it basically, in my opinion, proved the same. Like, it was in no way a Skytrack bashing session, because for £2,000, whatever it is, brand new, like, it's amazing. And 95% of the shots I was really comfortable where, exactly as I felt I was hitting the ball. The problem I had was the 1 in 10 or the 1 in 20 I felt was completely wrong. And if you're playing like simulator golf and you hit a bad shot, you're then doubting whether you hit the bad shot or it was picked up wrong. So, like, for the cash, like, amazing. I could have kept it for another 5 years and been really happy, but the GC3, in my opinion, you just don't get those misreads in the same way, or those kind of off reads that I felt the Skytrack was getting. And yeah, as I say, I wasn't slagging the Skytrack. I was the GC3 is genuinely, it's much more expensive, but it's genuinely just a different bit of kit.
Yeah, you would expect that for the price, wouldn't you? You'd expect
Totally,
that reliability with the
totally,
GC3. And
totally.
like it's a good point. Like when I watched your video, you did say that about when you're playing simulator golf. There was one shot you hit where it had said the SkyTrack had said it had gone 15 feet right or 15 yards right, and really the GC3 said it was like 2 or 3 yards left. And you
Yeah,
said that if you're playing simulator golf, let's say you're playing on the tour or whatever, um, that is the difference between being on the green or short siding yourself to the right in a
totally,
bunker or whatever it may be.
totally,
So it's
totally.
a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Moving on to your simulator setup.
Mhm.
So you said you had the flight scope, one of
Yeah,
the earlier flight scopes. Did you
yeah.
have that set up in your house as well?
So that was my previous house. So I've got some pictures I'll send over to you, but like the very start of this was, right, I need to get a simulator in my garage. And I was out with like the 3 wood and taking swings and thinking, am I going to hit the roof like I'm sure you did when you started with yours. And
Yeah.
then I got my joiner friend to cut out the trusses so I had more space, which probably made the building like non-compliant anymore, but I got my sim golf. So yeah, that was literally just like really, it was a second-hand net that was given for someone that didn't need it anymore, and it was like an old mat that I'd had in my garden for years, and then I had the launch monitor, so it was like super budget. And then I got the Skytrack with the same setup, and then when I moved here, it was like the flight scope wouldn't have worked here because you need that 18 feet front to back, because
Yeah.
it needs 9 feet from the wall to the ball, and then 9 feet hitting area, which I just didn't have here. So that's where the camera based monitors obviously work better in small spaces because it just needs to track the first 6 inches or something. So here I've always had either Skytrack or GC3 because it's a smaller space.
So looking at your enclosure, I'm going to start with your screen and your
Mm,
enclosure because it's quite a unique little setup you've got there. I've not seen
yeah,
anything like that before. So will you just talk us through? I'm assuming it's a DIY build that.
it is a DIY build. Yeah, so yeah, this room is, so as I said, it's got the 10 feet, which is more than enough, like 9 feet plus, and you're fine with, well, I'm fine with any club. And I have 12 feet by 12 feet, and that has to include like the door opening and things like that. So I started off, um, I've actually got a good story here. The very first sort of version of this in this house, again, was pretty budget, and I literally just had a wire and the alternating was hanging from it, and had three mattresses behind it. And the reason it had to be so close to the wall to maximize the space. And the problem I had was the mattresses also are used for visitors coming. And what you mustn't do is hit any balls without putting the mattress back after the visitors have come. So my wife's family were over and came in here, didn't realize the mattress was missing, hit a 4 iron, and I now have a pitch mark in my back wall here. So sim golf, you've got to take safety seriously. So anyway, after that, I got myself. I looked at the enclosures you can get on eBay and things, and they're about, I don't know, £1,500. Where it's probably similar in ways to this, but you've got the sides and things, and you buy it as a
Yeah.
package, and then you hang it. So I looked into one of those, but none of them were. It had to be like a perfect size. So I then thought, you know what? It's just like metal piping. Surely I can buy some of this. And I went on, I think it's metalstore.co.uk, and you can basically specify like any. I sent them a drawing, and I said, look, I want to build this, and a day later, for £100, I had this, enclosure, which I built up together. So now I have the mattresses are still there just in case. and then I have the archery netting, which takes a lot of the impact of the ball. And then I actually have about 6 months ago upgraded to, I think it's a Par to Pro screen it's called, and that hangs in front of the archery netting. So the archery netting takes a lot of, as I say, the pace out the ball, and then the screen like has a really sharp image on the projector. So and then it's just attached with the bungees at either side. So I don't have the enclosure that comes out the side, but that's what the shank netting's for, because everyone needs a shank netting just in case.
Even if you're a scratch golfer.
Even if it's a scratch golfer, I have friends that come over as well, and I mean I've hit a shank in my time, but this is quite a small dangerous space if you're playing with a beginner golfer, which I found out after a few pints.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of questions then for you there. So, first of all, the metal store, I used them when
Uh-huh.
I first built my enclosure and I had an outdoor setup during COVID.
Uh-huh.
And they're really good, aren't they? Because you can,
Brilliant.
like you said, you sent them a drawing. I literally just measured what dimensions I needed and then
Uh-huh.
sent it out, well, put it in online. And yeah, it came ready cut. All the pieces were there. All I needed to do was assemble it, and it was about 100 quid as well. It was
Yeah,
so
amazing.
good, so cheap.
Really good. Yeah.
And so yeah, you started off with an archery net, and
Yeah.
now you've gone and got this Parter Pro screen. Where did you buy
Yeah.
the Parter Pro screen from?
Oh, I think it's called is it Golf Tech Systems or something? I need to double check that. But yeah, I just it's one of the hardest things because again, you know, all the guys you've had on your channel, I've spoken about. You hear about the Carl's premium screen, and you hear about all these different options which we don't have as options in the UK. So I just, you know, I searched all the options, and you know, it's a lot of money for a piece of fabric, but when it comes, you can see why it's actually really high quality. So my screen actually, I'm only hitting from 5 feet away, and I thought I'd wear the screen out more quickly than I have. It's actually still good, but because I've got a wee bit extra material, you know, either side, I will eventually just kind of move it along a foot and then, you know, get the use out of it that way. But the archery netting is very heavy duty, and you'll probably never wear a hole in that, but you just don't get the image quality. So that's why I have that behind and then the particle screen in front. But yeah, it just came online. I actually bought mine. I think it was meant to be like an imperfect screen, so it was about half the price, and it looks perfect. You wouldn't even know there was. I don't even know what the
Yeah,
flaw in it is. So, and that yeah, that saved
yeah.
me. Say it cost me about 250 quid or something, and they're often about three times that.
Yeah, they're an expensive piece of kit, aren't they? If you want the
Totally,
more like premium end. I mean,
totally.
I started with an archery net, and like I just think that's the perfect starter. If you'd like starting to build an enclosure, start with an archery net. You're never going to wear a
Yeah,
hole in it. It's super
no,
durable. It's quiet. It's not going to wake the kids up when you're smashing balls into it and all that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, I was dead lucky. There's a guy called Phil Stewart who's actually I bought my first impact screen from him, and I literally emailed him and said, "Have you got any like old screens you're getting rid of?" And he sent me an impact screen that he said was imperfect, and it
Okay.
came, and I was like, "How is this imperfect? Like, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever."
Hmm, hmm.
And that was it was a really good screen. It was dead thin material, but it projected an amazing image on it. But it was so loud when you hit into it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Anyway, he kindly sent me a new what like a premium one.
Mm.
After I made a video about GS Pro comparing it to the Golf Club 2019. And he just
Uh-huh.
randomly emailed me and he said, "Mitch, I've got this screen. It's an imperfect screen, but it's better quality than the one that I sent you previously. You can have it."
Mm.
So I was like, "All right, amazing. That's really kind." And it came and it's like super thick. It's like cushion and
Mm.
padding. It
Mm.
has this amazing image that you can project onto it, and it doesn't make as much of a sound when you're smashing balls into it. So I think that's what you're paying for when it comes to impact
Yeah,
screens, isn't it? You're paying for the image quality, and that I think
totally.
you're also paying for the sound as well that it makes, how much noise it makes.
It's one of those things where when you first, as you say, set up your sim and you've got a budget, like spending hundreds of pounds on a piece of material you think is not good value, but when you're trying to finish your sim off, I think is an absolute must because, as you say, it just is better in every way.
You said you got your ceiling in your room is like nine,
Mhm.
10 feet high.
Yeah.
What like how long is your room? How wide is your room? Have you got plenty of space to swing driver and all that?
So yeah, so it's 12 feet long, which I wouldn't want it much tighter than that. So I hit from 5 feet from the screen, which is totally fine. I've never hit the screen or anything, and it's fine behind. So it's 12 feet by 12 feet, 12 feet wide is actually slightly more than we need. I have kind of like a storage unit here, and it's totally fine for me. It's totally fine for me and a friend. It's okay for me and two friends. And I once had a four ball in here, and it was madness. So my room is perfect for myself, but I can't have three pals over.
Oh mate, yeah, it's funny because there's so many similarities between like your setup and my setup.
Mm,
I'm finding just through talking to you here. Like my dream is to have, I've said it before, my dream is to have like a big space, like get all the
mm,
lads round, have a four ball, bit
mm.
of competition Friday night, have a few beers or whatever. And I tried it once, and honestly, it was so dangerous. We had about six of us in
Stressful.
here. People were swinging wedges, like going that far from people's noses, and I
Uh,
was like, right, we gotta get out of here now. But yeah,
yeah,
like I say, mine's amazing for me, but not quite for anybody else. So maybe one day
totally,
we'll get to a
totally.
decent space. But one thing I did notice, you've mentioned it there, like you're only 5 feet from your screen.
Mhm.
I've seen you smash your driver into your screen, and it just your screen just kills the ball. It doesn't have any sort of bounce
No.
back really. And from like how close you are hitting it to the screen, I was expecting a bit more of like a ricochet. So you've said you've obviously got your screen, you've got your archery net. Have you still got the mattresses behind there? Is that
Yeah,
what's dampening
so
it?
like I'm never taking them out again because I don't want another pitch mark. But yeah, I think I actually also have, and this is just, I guess trying to, as you say, reduce the sound, reduce the bounce back. So it goes mattress, and then it's like a sort of like a thin duvet over the mattress, and then it's the archer netting, and then it's the screen. And as you
Right.
say, like 160 mile an hour ball speed, and the ball bounces down about a foot or something, which is good because you don't want it rattling about in here, obviously.
No, it's amazing, mate. I was just fascinated by it. I was seeing you hitting
Hmm.
them drivers, and I was like, "Wow, what has he got in
Hmm.
that screen?"
I
Because
know,
it's
I
killing
know.
that ball. It's brilliant. So yeah, good
It
little
works.
tip that, mate.
Yeah, yeah,
I've heard I've heard quite a few people using the what they call the mattress protectors,
yeah,
the like a bit of memory foam or whatever. I have heard of people putting like a mattress behind it,
mm.
but I've never actually seen it in action until I've seen your videos. So that's a
I
nice,
think
it's an interesting tip.
Yeah, I think people, if they've just got the actual premium screen material, you want to pull it really taut for a crisp image, but that's where you'll tend to get the bigger bounce back and the loud noise. So mine's actually, even though my image is nice, it's not like the archery netting's pulled tight, but the screen's actually relatively loose in front of that, and I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. It takes the impact out of the ball, but we still get the nice picture.
Talking about your picture, you've obviously got a projector. I can see it on there behind you.
Yeah.
What kind of projector have you got? Have you got a 1080, 4K?
So that is a 4K actually. That was another kind of impulse buy that I didn't know if I'd see the value. And I bought it like where I can. I was trying to source stuff secondhand. That was just off eBay. It's an Epson 4K projector. And again, I'm not a big fan of the projectors. You see them on the floor, just to the
Yeah.
left of where they're hitting the ball, and they're really short throw, or somewhere up in the ceiling. So um, mine's actually hidden away in a cupboard with just a wee hole through it, so the projector's completely out the way. You're seeing some of the videos when like I go forward to pick up the ball, like it casts a shadow on the actual screen. But yeah, 4K projector, and with the likes of GS Pro, like 1080 is definitely enough. And by the time you're going up to, I know you'll ask this in a second probably, but the time you're going up to 4K, you then have to have an awesome graphics card. So it's getting a balance there. But yeah, that was like £800, sort of nearly new on eBay or something. It was quite a big purchase, but it's been good.
Yeah, they're expensive projectors, aren't
Mm-hmm.
they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've recently upgraded mine, and I'm dead happy with the image. It's
Yeah,
amazing. I was quite happy with my one beforehand, but then once you see the difference, I guess it's like
yeah,
it's the Skytrack and upgrading to
yeah,
GC3. Once you see the difference, you think, "Wow,
yeah,
why didn't I do this earlier?" And
definitely.
you can understand it, but again, it's such a hit to people's budgets
Mm-hmm.
if they're going to go, and especially get a 4K projector. They're a lot more expensive than the
Yeah,
1080s, but
definitely.
I guess it's one of those. I think if you have the end game in your mind that you want a full
Mm-hmm.
simulator room with the experience and the immersivity, if that's a word, um,
Mm-hmm.
you might as well bite the bullet and go for something that you know is going to last you a
I
long
agree,
time, rather
definitely,
than having to upgrade in a year's
definitely,
time when you realise, oh yeah, I can get something better.
definitely.
Um, So in terms of your graphics card, then,
Yeah.
are you running 4K? Are you, like, what graphics card have you got?
Yeah, so it's is it an RTX 3070, I think it's called. So yeah, I
Nice.
upgraded. I had a sort of gaming laptop before that when GS Pro first came out. Like would run anything on the top graphics quality, no problem. And as the courses have got better, and the course, sort of building software's got better, there's so much more stress in the graphics card. So I bought this PC maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and I can still run all the courses in the highest graphics settings, but you can just see it starting to kind of struggle in some of them. But again, like I don't. I've always run it in ultra. I don't know if you stepped back to sort of very good or whatever the next graphics setting is, it would probably still look fine. And I suppose if it gets to the point where like even this graphics card can't do it, that's when you've maybe just got to kind of dial back the graphics a little bit rather than spend another one. But it does totally fine. I'm aware that in a year's time it'll probably be struggling.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's like we're always going to have to upgrade because these courses
I
on GS
know,
Pro are just becoming
I
more and
know.
more demanding, aren't they? Which is amazing. But I mean,
Oh
like
yeah,
you say,
definitely,
for the wallet, it's not always amazing, is it?
totally.
But yes, it's a good little tip though, isn't it? Like you're obviously playing on Ultra. I mean, personally, I've never really noticed a massive difference between
Yeah,
ultra, very high, and high. I'm sure
yeah,
there is. It's probably one of them. Like once you see it, then
yeah,
obviously you'd understand it a bit more. But I've
yeah,
never really noticed it. So for me, like you've just said, rather than upgrading your graphics card, it'd make a bit more sense just to drop
yeah,
it down to very high or
yeah.
whatever. What kind of hitting map have you got? Have you got a decent one? Like,
Yeah, so again, there's so much choice, and you hear about people, recommending this really expensive one and this one's sore in your wrists and things. I had I had just like a proper old driving range style mat that I got. I think it actually came secondhand off eBay from a driving range at first, and it was totally fine. But I did a bit more research, and I think it depends what you're wanting to achieve. So I suppose at my level of the game, I'm wanting to practice my ball strike. I suppose everybody does, but I think the driving range mats can be really quite forgiving. So you'll hit a fat shot and it just bounces off a hard mat, and you still on the golf course it will go half the distance, but you still hit a decent shot. So I've got a pal in the industry, and I just said, "Look, what sort of mats would you use?" And so I actually went. I got it from Arm Tech Range. It's called, and it's called their Winter Tee Turf, and it's what they put in. It's what a lot of golf courses will put as their winter tees. Their par three
yeah,
winter tees. And the nice thing about it is quite soft, and like you can strike the ball lovely. But if you catch it heavy at all, you've caught it heavy, and the ball goes short. So it's more probably true to life and less forgiving. And it was like £300 or something. So I've had it probably for a year and a half, and like there's no sign of wear. So it's been a really good purchase. Again, it's one of those things. Until you've got it and tried it, you don't actually know if you're going to like it, but you don't have much options. So I just bit the bullet and bought this, and it's been really
yeah. Like you say, it's a minefield, isn't it?
good.
Like again, if you wanna start on a budget, get to your driving range, get a spare one, got an old one or whatever. But
Yeah,
again, it's one of those things. Like you being a very good golfer, you obviously want the best feedback from playing
yeah,
indoors, like in order to keep at that level or improve or whatever you're trying to do. And like the hitting mat is such an important part of that because, like you
mm,
say, if you're smashing a ball and you're catching it fat, but on a firm driving range mat, it's still going the distance, maybe 5 yards less than what you usually carry
mm,
or whatever. It's no good. That is it. You need something that's actually going to tell you the real feedback that you want.
totally.
Do you use your simulator mainly for practicing and keeping your game ticking over, or do you use it mainly to play on virtual courses?
Good question. As I say, at first, when I had the flight scope, there was no option. You just hit balls in the range, which was fun. And I've never been a big driving range person. If I go to the driving range, I just smash balls, and I don't like even though there's flags and targets, I don't think it focuses your mind at all. So if I'm trying to work on a specific thing, I might go to the range, but more often I'll go just onto a course. And so if it's wedge game, I will go to Pebble Beach and go 90 yards out and just hit wedge after wedge. I like having a target and bunkers, and the landscape somehow focuses my practice a lot better. So,
Yeah,
and then I think quite a good tip, if possible, if you can find a course in GS Pro that you've played before and you kind of know the tee shot, and like there's obviously not much penalty for hitting a bad shot on sim golf, but if you can actually properly picture the tee shot, I think it focuses you more. So I'll often hit like Carnoustie, the 18th at Carnoustie, arguably the hardest finishing hole in golf. I'll go and hit driver on the sim there because I know where the trouble is, I know where I don't want to miss, and I think my practice is a lot better on the course. But this winter, I know you kind of dabbled with the SGT, the golf tour yourself, like again, it's you're just playing for internet world ranking. Like it's not it's not the Open Championship, but having
No.
like some competition, I actually think that made the biggest difference to my golf this winter was playing in the golf tour, and like actually working towards something. And then when it came to spring, I actually felt like I played a load of golf. So I would definitely favour the course than the range.
In it a good thing that about the golf tour, the simulator golf tour, because I before I joined that I was just playing courses for fun and trying
Yeah,
to shoot the lowest score as you do,
yeah,
and then like if I hit a bad shot, I was like, "Aye, right, whatever, it don't matter." But then as soon as I joined the tour, because there was some competition there,
yeah.
like it's in my head, and I'm
I
like,
know,
right, I've got to focus on this
I
shot, and
know,
I'm
I
I'm hitting the
know.
same, I'm in the same, I'm hitting the same shot, I'm hitting straight line, whatever, nice lie. But
Yeah,
there was just that added little bit of pressure, and I just
yeah,
felt so much more like I was playing in a normal competition, outdoor
totally.
golf, and it just made it such a much more dynamic experience, I guess,
Definitely.
than
I
just
totally agree with that.
smashing and
Yeah,
playing courses.
totally.
So that's definitely one thing that I would like recommend to people about
Me too.
if you're using sim golf to try and get better, then definitely try and look at joining the simulator golf tour if you want that little bit of pressure on your shots.
Hmm.
One thing I actually put a little community post on my YouTube last night, and it just reminded me of well what you said just reminded me about it. I went to a top tracer driving range the other day, earlier this week, and I had a few balls left at the end of my session. I was just doing some filming, and I just started playing around with the top tracer, and it had this like approach challenge, and I need to work on my wedges. That's like one area in my game that I need to work on. So I thought, all right, I'll give that a go. And I went on, and you could select your course, and ended up selecting the Belfry, the Brabazon course there. But you could get Glen Eagles, Carnoustie, well, loads of different ones, St Andrews, whatever. And it basically randomly select 9 holes from that golf course, virtual course, and it
Hmm.
gives you like random distances approaching into the green. And I absolutely loved it because
Yeah,
rather than just like hitting targets on the driving range or like even on the sky track, I love the randomizer feature on that, but it was just
yeah,
so much more better because you're playing shots into real life holes and you've got the hazards there you got to think about, you got the pin positions you got to think about. And it just made it like so much fun to
totally.
practice. And I thought if GS Pro could one day incorporate something like
Yeah, yeah,
that, that would
definitely.
be a feature that I would be on all of the time. I just think it'd
Totally,
be dead cool. But yeah, it
totally.
just reminded me with what you said about like your little practice routines and stuff. So
Hmm.
definitely something for the GS Pro developers to think about, I'd say.
Hmm.
I know it's difficult for you, Pete, because you've kind of upgraded your launch monitors as time's gone
Hmm.
on. But if we're talking about your current sim setup, the one that you've got now, um, how much would you say it set you back? Like, you don't have to tell me exact figures. You can just give me a ballpark if you want to. But you've obviously got a good launch monitor. You've got
Yeah,
a couple of different screens on there and stuff. So, how
yeah,
much are you saying?
yeah. The reason I know what it costs is I did a video myself of what it costs to do my golf room. So all in, forgetting the launch monitor, all in, I was just over 2,000. So that is the mat, the projector, the gaming PC, the screen, and when I had my Skytrack, which I got for £1,000 second hand, so that would have been just over £3,000. The GC3, I got one of the first ones in the UK. So I was actually looking for a used GC2 at the time, and I think had one come up, I would have bought it. But and like a load of guys use the GC2, and there's absolutely no problems. I saw the GC3, and I was like, well, it'll be new and it'll have its warranty and things. That was 7,000, so that was a huge spend for me. And the irony is, £3,000 of that is the software, which I have opened once and used
Wow.
once. So if I could, but that's the deal. You don't have the option. You had to buy the package. It may have changed now, and I've seen some kind of deals, but all in, I've spent just over 9,000, which and I kind of mentioned earlier, you've got to like justify to yourself quite heavily at the start, is this worth it? But I've spent a whole year in here 3, 4 times a week, either myself or with my kids or with my friends, and like it just becomes totally worth it. Like golf is my passion outside my family, and for me, like £9,000 for hopefully years of enjoyment and improving my game is totally worth it.
Oh mate, I don't think you could have said it much better than that. It's kind of like an investment, I guess, because it's the time that you spend. Like you say, golf is your passion. Like probably most people that are watching this podcast or sorry, listening to this podcast are thinking the same. Like it's a massive hit. It's like, let's not kid anybody. It's an expensive game that we're playing here. It's a massive hit to the bank. But for the amount of hours of enjoyment, and your kids will probably get enjoyment out of it when they start playing
Mm-hmm.
golf if they're interested and stuff. I just think it's such
Mm-hmm.
a good investment. So although it sounds like a hell of a lot of money, we get to play golf in the winter, the dark
Yeah,
nights, all that sort of stuff. That kind of just
yeah,
gets taken away, not being able to play for weeks, months on end, or whatever. So
totally.
yeah, I'm with you there, mate. So it's a good shout, massive investment, I think. Has owning a golf simulator for you, Pete, would you say that it has improved your golf game? And if it has, in what way has it improved your game?
This is such a good question because my game has improved. I was off maybe three or something when I started hitting balls, in my garage originally. And it may be because I'm a better golfer. It may be because I've had some lessons. I think a huge part of it is golfing in here, and um, it's it's just the repetition of hitting balls for me. So again, I wasn't a huge person to go to the range. Like I used to hate going to the driving range, and it was like a 50 mile an hour wind, and you're bashing your range balls. You get nothing out of it. So like my time in here is often, but it's also really focused. So, and like I mentioned earlier, like back in the day when I was playing a bit over the winter. I'd come and try and put some cards in April, and it was probably like June before I was playing decent golf. I can go out and play in March now and feel like I've had a like I my driving, for example, like if we're looking at specifics, like my driver, if you watch some of the video, like I can drive a ball, but it's always been like massively inconsistent. So when I've driven the ball well, I I've scored well. I would hit 3 wood a lot. I'd avoid hitting driver because of my inconsistencies. And I don't know how many drivers hit this winter, 2,000 or something like that. And I now step up on the golf course and hit driver 12 times around because I'm so comfortable with it. And actually, something that I avoided in the past in my simulator room was if I was playing in the summer and playing well, I didn't practice in here at all because I didn't like, even though it was close to golf, it wasn't real golf, and I didn't want to mess with my real golf. And I
Yeah.
think completely the opposite now. So I didn't drive the ball well, like club championship qualifier a couple of weeks ago. I didn't drive the ball that well. I came in here for 2 hours, and the next night I was hitting it great. So not only is it just a tool for me to keep my swing in the winter, like I can like lock myself in this room for 2 hours and leave a better player, and that's mind blowing. Yeah, so to answer your question, totally it's helped my game. How much I don't know, but I've gone from three to plus one,
Well,
and
yeah.
yeah, like I'm ready to play like anytime because I'm hitting balls all the time. I won't go weeks without hitting any balls now.
I like that what you just said there. So let's say we go out, play a round of golf, and driving's terrible, or wedge play's terrible. It happens to all of us. We all have off days. If you're like, I mean, we're working guys, we've got families. You're probably not going to play golf or head to the driving range for another 2, 3 days, maybe a week
Hmm.
before your next round or whatever. You've probably got that going on in your head. Oh, my driving's been crap all week. Like, I wonder what it's going to be like next week. With a sim, that's a different story. You get the kids to bed. You go into your garage or wherever your sim is. You can work on that at home. You don't have to
Yeah,
go out in the 50 miles an hour
totally.
winds. You can work on that, and then straight away that doubts out your head, like you just said. You can leave your office there a better golfer than what you were when you went in 2 hours ago
Totally.
because you've worked on whatever it was. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. That I've never actually thought about it like that. But
Hmm.
I definitely agree with what you said there. What golf ball do you use in your sim?
So I just use the same balls in the course, Pro V1. That's the other thing I kind of find funny when you see someone hitting balls on YouTube or whatever, and they've got 100 golf balls lying around. I use one golf ball. I've lost like three packets of tees in this room. I don't know where they've gone, like up behind the screen or something. But I'll use one golf ball until it's pretty much done, and that could last me. Bearing in mind I'm hitting hundreds of shots a week, that could last me a month. So and then when it's done, like they don't crack very often. Usually they get scuffed up or whatever. So I'll probably, and then I'll just change it out for another new Pro V1. And yeah, maybe a dozen will last me a whole season.
Yeah, mate, I ain't good enough to be using Pro V1s out on the course. I only use ones that I find on my round. I don't buy new ones. I don't use them on the course. But I actually won a pack of Pro V1s just
Uh,
behind me, and I'm like, I'll use them in the sim because I'm not going to lose them. I'm going to get my money's worth out of
you're
them.
not gonna lose. You can't lose a golf ball in the sim. That's a good thing.
No, no, it's amazing, isn't it? So yeah, I'm happy to use Pro V1s, brand new Pro V1s in the
Mm.
sim. I'm not taking brand new Pro V1s out on the course just yet. Maybe
What
when I get to your level one day.
what I would say is, and yeah, like that's perfect, and everyone's got different scenarios, but I think, and this is true in the golf course, if possible, try and use the same ball because and I've done some testing. I'm going to do a video sometime like testing different balls and lake balls and things to see how they perform, driving range ball, but you, especially if you're spending time in your sim, you're going to get to know your yardages pretty well. And if you're then switching out different golf balls with different compressions, and like 5 yards doesn't sound like much, but as we talked about like earlier, 5 yards could be the difference between being next to the hole and being like short-sided, next to greenside bunker. So if you if you favor a particular ball, play it in your sim and play it in the course, and you'll just get used to how that ball reacts. They're all quite different in many ways.
It's interesting. I really enjoyed talking to you, mate, because you're obviously a very good golfer, and most people that I've spoken to online doing this video podcast, they're all been like similar to me. They might be like early teens, whatever, like maybe 8, 9 handicap or whatever. It's really good to speak to a scratch golfer and get some
Hmm.
like advice like that from you, because me personally, I don't use the same golf ball over and over on the course. I'll pull out one that's a little bit of soft feel. I quite
Yeah,
like it, a little bit of
yeah.
control on it and stuff. It might be a Strixon, it might be a Pro V one that I found, whatever. Callaway Chrome Soft, anything like that. But I don't see the I don't have the consistency in my game. I don't think to hit the same golf ball and get the same amount of spin or get the same sort of fly or whatever. I feel like I probably need to be a little bit more consistent in my game to justify that.
Yeah.
Would you say otherwise for somebody like me? Like
So
I play off 11.
so you're right in a way, like you don't want to go and spend like 40, 50 pounds a box just to play the same ball. But the only counter argument to that is, so you said something there like you don't strike it consistently enough potentially to get the spin right. If different golf balls spin different amounts and your strike makes a ball spin a different amount, you'll never get used to it because you've got two variables there. So if you have
Yeah,
a ball that reacts exactly the same every time and you're the inconsistent piece, you can work in your own game knowing the ball's doing the same thing. I mean, maybe
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't make that much difference. I was playing a Bridgestone until, I don't know, 3, 4 months ago, and I loved the Bridgestone, and I played Pro V1 like my whole life before that. I just fancied a change. And I went back to Pro V1, and it was honestly like going back to an old friend. I was like, I know how to work this golf ball. And as stupid as it sounds, like the Bridgestone, there's a difference. Like, they're both brilliant golf balls, but I've just been so used to one like my whole golfing career that I know how it reacts. And actually, and I suppose you're not going to get this so much in sim. This is more relevant in a golf course. But when you're hitting your chip shots, like some golf balls grab them instantly, and some will roll miles. I think that's when it's really important. If you want to improve your short game, you need to know how the ball is going to react.
It makes
In
so
my
much sense,
opinion.
mate. No, it makes so much sense what you just said, and
Mm.
yeah, I think you've definitely convinced me to keep the consistency
Get
because
those Pro V ones
again,
out in the course.
no, they stay there. I get some cheaper ones, but yeah, it makes absolutely so much sense. Like I say, you've got two variables there. If you've got me who's inconsistent, and you've got a golf ball that's inconsistent because you're chopping and changing them all the time,
Mm.
and that last point about the short game is massive. Like that is the worst part of my game. I am
Mm.
chip two putts all the time. I'm chipping to 20 feet. I'm chipping to 15 feet. If you can get that consistent amount of spin on that short game, on your short game, I think it's just going to make a big difference in it. So
Totally.
I'm going to take your advice there, mate, and I'm going to start
Sounds
being a
good.
bit more. I'm going to choose a ball. And I'm going to stick to it. So thank you.
Nice. Nice.
I'm going to come. I'm going to come back to some more scratch golf advice from you in a moment. But before
Okay.
we do that, just going to ask you a couple of questions on your launch monitors that you've had.
Hmm.
So let's start off with your GC3. Great piece of kit, expensive piece of kit, but great piece of kit. What is the best thing and what is the worst thing about the GC3 in your opinion?
The best thing about the GC3 is I completely trust it. Um, So, like I mentioned, Carnoustie there, we're so lucky. We don't have a driving range at the course, which is a big negative for like visiting golfers. But we have a seven simulator set up, like completely decked out by Foresight. And I got used to the GC2, and so the GC3, I can hit a shot and strike a ball and know how far it's gone, and then the GC3 shows me how far. So I completely trust the accuracy. I love the fact it's got club data. So, for example, if I'm working on my strike, I look at the ball speed and I know it's consistent. So and the fact that it's ball and club data, like club path, is a big one to work on. I know that's three things that I've told you, and not just one.
That's
Um,
fine.
the only downside to the GC3, I've heard people say they've had problems with theirs. Like I don't know if this is like early bugs or whatever. I've never had any issues with mine, but I suppose the one downside is it cost me 7 grand. That is legitimately the only drawback is it's expensive, but everything else, like the fact that pretty much every guy on tour in the range, you see them using a GC quad, which is essentially the same thing, just four cameras rather than three. But the fact they're using it and trusting it is good enough for me.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, mate. They're using it for a reason, I guess,
Yeah.
and maybe one of those reasons is they might get paid for it. But I reckon they're
Oh,
going to be
possibly.
using it
I mean, possibly.
if they don't think it's improving their game, they're not going to use it, are they? So
No.
all right. So yeah, nice one for that. Do you have to put a little metallic dot on your club, do you, to use the GC3?
You have to put it on if you want the club data. So
Yeah,
it still does the ball data, but if you want to know your swing speed and your club path and your angle of attack and things, you need a little one little dot, yeah.
does that bother you, or you're not bothered?
Do you know what? It doesn't bother me at all, and in fact, I play a whole season without knowing it. But this is either a new rule, or I should have been disqualified from every tournament I've ever played
You
with
had
these.
something
But
on
you're
your
not
club
you're
face,
you're
yeah.
not allowed to have them on. So if I'm playing a tournament, I will take them off.
Yeah.
Officially, you're not meant to have them there, but it's you don't even notice. They don't even notice they're there.
No, mate, I've done the same thing myself. Like I've gone for a bit of a launch monitor session at my local golf club before, and I just thought it'd be fine. You're allowed to keep them on. It's no bother. I'll just
Yeah.
keep them on because I don't think it'd be impacting anything. But there, one of my mates said to me, you're not allowed to do that, Mitch. Just actually against the
Mm-hmm.
rules. I was like, oh, I didn't know, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we know now, don't we?
Yeah.
So right, that's great. GC3, obviously, good things. Not very many bad things at all. What
No.
about the Skytrack then? What would you say is the best thing about Skytrack and the worst thing about Skytrack?
So the best thing about the Skytrack is again, if you saw my video, the carry distance between the Skytrack and the GC almost all the time was like within a yard. It was something crazy. It's so accurate for picking up the distance of your shots. I've heard of people having loads of mysteries in, like you've got to have the right color of shoes on and the right background and that. I didn't have any of those problems. So the best thing is super accurate for the money. The worst thing is the horizontal launch angle. So that's your left and right. And the fact that, like, again, GC3 and people commented in my video saying, who's to say it's not the GC3 that's wrong and not the Skytrack? But there's definitely times where you'll hit a shot and I'm thinking I striped that and it's like 57 yards left.
Yeah,
So it's the 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 that I didn't trust is the worst thing. The best thing is if you're on a budget, I don't think there's a better option.
yeah, definitely. I mean, you're a good golfer, Pete, and you know what kind of shot you hit. You get used to your feel, don't you? And you know
Mm-hmm.
if you've hooked it a bit, if you pulled it, if you pushed it, whatever. And it's a fair point. people are going to question, how do you know it's the GC3 that's not wrong? But you know, don't you? As a golfer, even
Yeah,
me as an 11 handicap golfer, you do know
you do.
most of
You
the
do.
time what kind of shot you've hit. So
Yeah.
yeah, fair play. You've had a golf simulator now for quite a while. You've had a DIY setup. You've had a few different launch monitors. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's just starting out on their golf simulator setup journey, what bit of advice would you give for them?
This is going to be totally predictable. And I watched, I don't know what it came up. One of your videos came up. It was like a wee short thing, and it was you'd asked that question to about five different guys, and I've got the same answer. If you're tempted to do it, and you're wrestling with the idea, am I going to use it? Is it a waste of money? Is it this? Is it that? Like, just do it because, um, I think when I first started, I questioned the accuracy of the technology and, even the quality of the software, and was it going to be useful? Is it going to be any better than just using the one at the local club or going to the range or whatever? And it's just so much better. So it's so much better than my expectations. Like, I genuinely feel I've spent £9,000 in here, but I feel like I have a world class indoor golf facility just because the technology has come so far. So if you're thinking about doing it, but you're questioning whether it's right for you, just do it because you won't regret it. And if you do regret it, there's resale value in these things.
Yeah, there is. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, when I bought mine, I was toying with the idea for ages. It started
Mm,
off as a pipe dream, so I was like massively. I caught the bug for golf massively. It was in that first year where I'd started playing regular, and I was joking with my mates who I playing golf with, like, "Oh, I'd love to have a golf simulator," and they were just laughing it off, and I was laughing it off. Anyway, I looked into it and I realised, like, all right, £2,000 for a Skytrack, like that was the cheapest one on the market at the time. I thought it's not as bad as what I thought it would be. I thought it'd be like 10 grand or whatever. So I ended up like convincing myself that I can afford this, I can do this.
mm,
And it took me a while. It took me ages to think, oh, I don't know whether I should. It's a lot of money. Am I going to use it? Is it going to be worth it? And then COVID hit, and it was literally
mm,
like the day before lockdown got announced. I was like, this is going to be the time because everything's going to get shut
yeah,
down. I either buy it now or I'm going to be
yeah,
stuck at home twiddling my thumbs for
yeah,
days. So I bit the bullet, and I don't regret it one bit. I mean, obviously,
totally,
I've managed to build a YouTube channel, whatever. Even if I didn't have this, I would still be using this as my
yeah,
practice facility all of the
totally,
time. So
totally.
yeah, for anybody out there, if you love golf and you want to play all year round and you want to play world famous courses that you probably won't get the chance to play in real life, it's definitely worthwhile, and it's a definite worthwhile investment. This is something that I kind of struggle with, and I know I asked you the question before about do you practice or do you play courses when it comes to like your sim, um, but I struggle with like finding the time to make finding practice time basically on my sim. I'll load up GS Pro, I'll load up Pebble Beach, I'll load up Georgia Golf Club, and I'll just play. Um, Before I had GS Pro and the Golf Club 2019, I was just on the Skytrack range, working on shot shaping, working on wedges, and I was getting all right. I was getting decent, making progress, I'd say. Since I started playing on courses, it's just like a bit of fun now, and I've lost my practice routine. So, as a very good golfer as you are, could you give me or could you give our audience like a little bit of a practice routine? It only has to be a 10, 15 minute one, 20-minute one. Like what would you do if you were going into your sim and you think, right, I need to practice a particular area of my game. You've got simulator software, you've got GS Pro,
Mhm.
you've got courses, you've got foresight, range, whatever. What would you do?
So yeah, I'd start off like let's say it was 15 minutes and I wanted like to sort of practice a few areas in a game. First thing I'd do is I'd pick the wedge yard which I wanted to work on. So I used like a wedge system, like Dave Peltz's wedge system, where you've got a number of wedges and different swings and a clock face. So let's say I'm working on
Yeah,
a 90 yard, which is my 9 o'clock 52. I'll pick just a really nice hole on like Cypress Point, and I'll stick the ball 90 yards and I'll have a 10-foot gimme circle, and I'll just try and, say you're going to hit 20 shots, count how many you can get in that gimme circle. So say you get two one week, the next week you've got to get five, and then you've got to get 10. And before you know it, like most of your shots are like ending up or in or around the gimme circle. So that's focused practice. You can play around with those yardages, so just go forward. That's the beauty of GS Pro. You just click somewhere in the hole, and you're just, your
Yeah.
perfect yardage, or just pick a random yardage. So really good for the wedge distances. And then like my iron shots, again, I'll go to Cabot Cliffs. Is it the 16th, par three or 17th? And
Oh, I don't know.
I'll do the same thing. I'll have like a 20-foot gimme circle, and I'll just hit like, it's, I don't know if it's just me, but something with a beautiful background, and you're actually picturing being there. And it's so much more useful hitting shots at a gimme circle and a course to a flag, in my opinion, just bash them down the range. So I'll do the same thing, 7 iron, so whatever, 175, and just see how many I can get within 20 feet, and then I'll start trying to hit maybe different shapes and stuff, and then pick a driving hole that you like. So it could be, or that you don't like, maybe even preferably. So like 18th at Sawgrass, so home of the players, really tough tee shot where you got to hit a wee sort of draw down there. So again,
Yeah.
maybe you'll hit 20 balls, and your goal is to hit 15 on the fairway, and just again, that's you're getting the repetition of the swing which you would get in any driving range, but you've also got a focus and like a score to beat the next week. So that's what I would do. I'd spend 5 minutes in each of those, and that's a really good 15-minute session.
I love that, mate, and I'm making a note of that because I'm gonna definitely use that. For me, I love playing the courses. Like I was saying before, about the top tracer little thing that I saw the other day. I love
Mm-hmm.
playing courses. I love getting into Jazz Pro. I love just loading up a course, but it's just easier to like press play game, start at number one, and work your way around the course. But now, like, even if it's just a 10-minute job, 15-minute job, like I just said, just do that first. And I imagine, like, if I did that before a simulator golf tour event, then I imagine my wedges will be a hell of a lot more dialed in than they
Mm-hmm.
would if I'd have just loaded up the
Definitely.
event and played anyway. So I'm definitely going to give that a try, mate. Thank you very much.
It's
Um,
it's another it's another nice way of seeing courses as well. So when you've got like 1,000 courses to pick, and you don't know which to pick a new course, go into practice mode, and just click a few holes, hit a few shots, and then you'll know if that's a course worth playing in the future. And if you feel it's not, you've at least done your practice.
exactly, yeah. Like I say, there's so many courses now, isn't there? You're
I
spoiled
know,
for choice, really.
I know.
So yeah, it's a
Most of
good
them are
way.
amazing.
Okay, Pete, we're just going to finish off with some quick fire questions. I hope you don't mind. So,
No, no.
feel free to expand on any questions that you want. But first of all, we're going to go GC3 or Skytrack. What do you prefer?
GC3.
Thought you'd say that. Who is your favourite golfer?
Rory McIlroy, definitely. Just I don't know. As far as I'm aware, everybody wants him to win, and it's bitterly disappointing when he doesn't. So, but he's the guy that if it's just a random tour event and he's not playing, I probably won't watch it, and if he is, I will.
He's a fascinating guy, Rory, isn't he?
Hmm.
I just think he comes across like morally really good, doesn't he? Like obviously he's did the whole thing sticking up for PGA Tour and what have you, but he's very
Yeah,
outspoken on things, and people always listen to what he's saying and they take it on board. Nobody really
yeah,
like criticizes him a lot, I don't think.
no. He's like on his day, he is the best guy to watch in golf. And I think he speaks his mind, and most of it's good stuff. I think he's great.
That's it. He speaks his mind, doesn't he? I like that
Yeah.
about him. Indoor or outdoor golf? What do you prefer?
Outdoor golf, indoor golf in the winter.
What is your dream launch monitor?
My dream launch monitor is probably GC Quad. Um, Again, I've used the quad at the local facility. It seems almost exactly the same, but I think indoors, I think it's probably the gold standard. Although you hear a lot about the uniquers, I don't know a huge amount about them, but people speak very highly. One of the kind of the overhead ones would be cool.
Yeah, it,
So you didn't have it in front of you.
we don't seem to get them over here. I don't think, do we? I've
Uh,
never really seen anywhere that sells them.
no, I've never looked into that much, but I suppose then maybe the answer to that should be is it GC Hawk it's called,
Yeah, the one
which is
that
the
goes on the
overhead one.
ceiling.
What's that
Yeah,
like?
that'd be good.
30,000 or something? I don't know. Probably a lot.
Beyond our budget, mate.
Yeah.
Um, are launch monitors worth the money?
Yes, 100%. Again, everyone's got a budget, but I think if you're just hitting a ball into a net without any feedback, it's quite dangerous for practice. Like that's how I warm up. I prefer to not, I prefer to warm up in the net before a big round, without seeing where the ball went, because for me it's just loosening off. It's not about, if I hit a couple of shots that I hit the cut, and then I suddenly start trying to change my swing to hit a different shape and things, I start doubting myself. When I'm warming up, I just prefer to hit shots in a net without knowing where it's going. But if you're practicing in a net, like, is it the Garmin? Is it the what's it called? The R10, is it?
The R10, yeah.
The R10, and I know you've tried. Have you tried that before? I
Yeah.
think if it's that or nothing, like what like entry price that is for sim golf. So if you've only got $500 or pounds to spend on launch monitor, do it. If you've got 5,000 to spend on a foresight unit, do it. It's totally worth the money.
Drive for show or putt for dough?
Putt for dough.
You're the
I
first
love
guy that
pulling a
said
putt.
that.
There's nothing better. Like, I love ripping a tee shot 300 yards, but there's no better feeling than looking up and seeing a 20-footer drop in.
And all the other guys that I've asked that to, they're like probably similar handicap to me, maybe a bit lower, a bit higher. And everybody said drive for show. Drive for show. And that's just us, isn't it? We're still at that stage where we just love to hit a
Yeah.
good tee shot, like everybody does.
So,
But go on.
I don't know. I'm tracking my shots gained. You've heard of shots gained. This guy, I think the guy's called Mark Brody, and he does a lot of. We does all the golf stats, and he's basically proven at pretty much any level of golf that the tee shot is probably the most important shot. So at a level of golf, if you're a 20 handicapper and you can prove your tee shots and hit them in play, that's where you'll save more shots than anywhere else. The drive for show putt for dough debate is probably old fashioned now. I just prefer holding putts and hitting big drives.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny. I was watching a video. Wait, it was this morning. I was just doing a bit of like research for this. So I typed in scratch golf into YouTube. Obviously, that's the name of your YouTube channel. A number of videos come up, like Peter Finch, like other scratch golfers that like made videos of how to be a scratch golfer, and that is exactly what they said in terms of strokes gained. They said if you can drive the ball closer to the hole and you have a wedge
Mhm.
shot in, it's miles better than taking a 6 iron off the tee and
Yeah,
having a mid iron in, because you've got much more control over your wedge. So if you've got a wedge out of the rough compared to a 6 iron off the fairway, you're
totally,
probably going to score better if you take the wedge
totally,
shot out of the rough, aren't you? So
totally,
makes absolute sense, mate.
totally.
You you're not a fraud as a scratch golfer. You know what you're talking
No, I believe so.
about. Right. FSX Play or GS Pro?
So GS Pro 100%. As I said earlier, I spent like a stupid amount of money on this, and well, a lot of it was the software. SFX Play, I've not turned it on in about 6 months, but when I did use it, it was still kind of beta. I think it was sold as not beta, but it clearly had problems. Didn't run very well, even on a very powerful machine. So they may well get it right, and there's definitely like a quality to the graphics, but they're kind of different. So there's definitely a quality to it. But GS Pro, I think, looks better. I actually have a video, I don't know if you've seen it, where I literally compare this Pebble Beach side by side and there's the fly over the holes, and me playing
Ah,
both the
no.
holes. And I think, and that's before even the newest courses, the V4 or whatever they are, a
Yeah.
version of the course in GS Pro. But the gameplay and the realism and the physics are just, and the camera angles make such a big difference as well. They're a bit weird in FSX Play. So GS Pro 100%.
Radar-based launch monitors or camera-based launch monitors? What do you prefer?
This is a slightly more complex question than you might think, having owned both. So radar outside is amazing because it will track your ball from when you hit it to when it lands. So you get the true real world distance, okay? Which is brilliant if you're working on, like again, even the foresight stuff, you're making assumptions about, even though they have a built-in barometer, and I think you can change the weather and stuff, and obviously the temperature to try and suit your conditions. But there's always a question mark: is it actually perfect? So outdoor radar, in theory, is perfect. The downside to that is, unless it's windless, then that distance is irrelevant. And I think that's why so many of the pros use the quad. Is they don't want to know how far it's gone in real life, because real life is different every
Yeah.
day. They want to know what the launch monitor tells them every day. So definitely camera based I prefer, but there's definitely a sort of like a different quality to the radar units. I think the radar units for sim golf indoors, the radar units are not as good because um, they're made to work outdoor to track the ball long distance, and their algorithms are quite different because you're only seeing the ball for like 9 feet or whatever. So yes, answer your question, camera based.
Okay, Peter. Thank you so much for coming on the Show As Your Golf Simulator podcast. I hope that everybody's got a great few ideas from you because you've got quite an interesting setup there. So it's very different, a few different ideas. So, like I say, thank you for sharing. If anybody hasn't checked out Peter's YouTube channel, then please head over to Scratch Golf. There's some amazing little videos on there, and you can see his setup in even more detail. So I'm going to put a link to your YouTube channel in the description below this
Thank you.
video, Pete. So yeah, definitely head over there, guys. So once again, Pete, thanks very much for coming on the show, and take care,
Cheers,
buddy.
Mitch. Thanks a lot. Cheers.